It's the Acting Income Podcast with Ben Hauck, episode 13, How to Develop a Hosting Career with Lucy Norris.
It's the Acting Income Podcast with Ben Hauck. Turn your passion into income, Ben will show you how. With all the resources that you need to make it as an actor in an expensive city. To stay balanced and make money, you really can't go wrong with actingincome.com.
Welcome to the Acting Income Podcast. I'm Ben Hauck, and on this podcast, we talk about anything and everything that helps you earn an income as an actor. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is episode 13, titled How to Develop a Hosting Career with Lucy Norris. Pull up the show notes right now at actingincome.com/episode 13. And while you're doing that, here's a word from today's sponsor, my book, Long-Form Improv. If you've ever heard of improv, you've also heard of yes-anding. Yes-anding is about cooperation. And my book, Long-Form Improv, covers all the facets of cooperation that affect your improv. From playing characters, to bargaining, to finding the perfect place to edit a scene, Long-Form Improv has it all. To grab your copy of Long-Form Improv, which is great for friends, great for coworkers, and great for any group working together, go to actingincome.com/LFI.
You're on deck with Lucy. This show is all about the 3 T's of New York. The talent, the trends, and the tastes.
She may sound like she's British, but she's really from the Bronx. The accent is a fake. I'm Perez Hilton, and you're on deck with Lucy.
That's how begins the entertainment show created by my next guest on the Acting Income Podcast. I met Lucy Norris some years ago while doing a turn of promotional work, where I learned of her burgeoning aspirations to do on-camera hosting. It wasn't long before her bubbly British brand of hosting exploded, to the point I was hearing she was on QVC and HSN. Of course she was. Lucy's hosting work practically came to her when she stuck herself firmly in the fashion and trend niche. But it wasn't that easy. In this interview, Lucy shares how she developed her hosting career and what you might expect if you take a turn in hosting. Here's Lucy's bio. British by birth, New Yorker by choice, Lucy Norris is a versatile TV host and producer with broadcasting successes including news, talk, variety, and non-scripted formats. Highlighting New York City talents, trends, and tastes catapulted her to success with her independent TV show On Deck with Lucy. As a beauty and fashion expert, she is also contracted as the Dr. Brandt skincare spokesperson on HSN and travels nationally for Salon Centric. When she's not on camera, you can find her exploring New York and everything that the city has to offer. And now, my interview with Lucy Norris. Lucy Norris, welcome to the Acting Income Podcast.
Great to be here, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Is that a British accent I hear?
It is a British accent. It's a real one. I bought it just for you.
Lucy, you are a host, and I've seen your work for a long period of time, and I've also seen your work grow as a host. I've seen you do, amateur hosting, and I've seen you now grow into professional hosting. What are some of the kinds of hosting engagements you do right now?
Well, recently, the past year has been incredible for me. I'm now the Vice President of Patient Relations for Dr. Brandt, meaning that I work closely with the patients, but I'm their spokesperson. So I'm on TV talking about all of their products, about the brand. I'm also the MC for Salon Centric, which is owned by L'Oreal. So that's live hosting. I get on stage, I bring on all of the big hair brands, introduce them for shows. I also work for Go-Go Mix, which is a celebrity lifestyle website, web series. And then on top of all of that, I'm also a product specialist for Acura. So I travel around America talking about cars and presenting about them.
Wow, my head just exploded. So you do on-camera hosting, you do live stage hosting, you do web series hosting, and you also do, is it auto shows?
Basically, yeah. I like to keep things varied and changing every day.
And that's all professional hosting work, too.
Yeah, everything is, I would imagine when you say professional, how as actors and artists we differentiate that is professional generally is that you're getting paid to do what you love to do. So yes, they're all professional jobs.
So there was a progression to getting those points. It's not like you came out of the womb and you were, You were hosting for, you said Dr. Brandt was the one company you worked for.
Yes,
it's not like
correct.
you came out of the womb. You grew to that point. You weren't suddenly driving Acura cars when you were born. I'm interested to hear, what kind of training have you had as a host? Do you have formal hosting training? Do you have experiential training where you've just put yourself out there? What is some of the hosting experience that you have or training you have?
I actually remember my first hosting training workshop was probably when I was about 15 back in London, and it was organised. BBC were actually a sponsor of it, and it was one of their programmes that they offered. So I did a weekend of that, and that was really when I got in front of the camera and started to understand what hosting takes and the work behind it. And then I was lucky enough to actually get a live hosting gig when I was about 18 back in England for a company called Fame TV, which that was my training full out. I was on TV for about 6 hours nonstop, and it was live, and I didn't understand it at the time. I was actually producing these segments because I was thinking about what I was going to talk about and getting the viewers to interact. So I wasn't aware of it, but I was actually producing my segments. It was live, and I would say that was very strong training. But alongside all of that, I was trained as an actress.
How does that acting background fit in with the hosting? I mean, do you feel like you draw specific things from your acting to feed your hosting?
I would say so. I think a lot of actors were told that you have to get life experience in order to develop and grow as an actor. And I think that me going out there, getting life experience, at the time, I thought this was going to help with my acting, actually progressed into my hosting because it gave me a view on the world, gave me a view on people, especially, again, with acting, you have to observe people. And that combined into my hosting and my ability to interview people.
You do a lot of commercial hosting, meaning you work for companies, and some of your hosting involves pitching products or representing products. Is there any other job experience that you've had that somehow lent to the sales component of your hosting?
I laugh because at the time I was like, oh my God, I hate this job, but it really helped me. When I was 18, I didn't go to university like everyone else did. I was like, I'm just going to be famous. I'm going to move down to London and I'll just be fine. And then I realized that London's really expensive and I needed to get a job very quick, but I also needed something that was going to be flexible. So I went into promotional work.
Promotional work as in like brand ambassadors?
Yeah, meaning like one of my first job was out on the street handing out flyers. I know how that feels. I did all of those sort of jobs, and that definitely helped with my understanding of how to pitch product, how to give customer service, all of that stuff. I would definitely say the promotional work at the very beginning helped me with my commercial hosting work.
So you're talking about London, but you live in New York City.
Yeah.
You moved to New York City about 7 years ago, correct?
Ben, you know. Yes, I did. You've been doing your research.
And when you came to the city, was hosting on your mind?
No, I actually got a scholarship for acting school for TV and film. So that's why I came here to train as an actress. And that's what I thought I was going to be and do.
But you fell into hosting.
I was going through all of the casting sites, and there was a hosting opportunity. It was some kind of movie web series, and I was talking about these independent movies. And I was like, oh, I could do that. I've done that before. So I applied and I got the job. And it was a non-paid gig, but I was like, you know what? This is going to be good to add to the resume. And I did the gig and I was like, this is what I love to do. This is my passion. You know that sort of adrenaline that you get that everyone was talking about in acting, and I got it at times, but there was something that was holding me back. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. I just want to host and be myself on camera.
You're beating your computer right now. Your hands were contorted in claws and your face lit up. I can see the passion that the audience can't see right now that you have for hosting.
Yeah, I have a lot.
So then you arrived and you realized you want to do hosting. So how did you figure this out? I mean, did you devise a strategy? Like, I want to become a professional host, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get there? Or what did you do?
After I finished school, we have to make money. We have to get out into the world. So I actually used some of my other skills to have an income so I could build up my resume, because everything as a host I'd done in England meant nothing over here.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, what, Fame TV? I don't know what that is.
So the credits didn't matter so much, but your experience probably mattered.
Yeah, the experience definitely came into it, but they weren't able to familiarize themselves with these credits that I had. I never really found it with acting, but in hosting I did. So I had to build my resume up. So I was teaching yoga to kids on the side and then building my resume up with non-paid hosting gigs.
With non-paid hosting gigs. I know that you have a show that you created called On Deck with Lucy. It has a YouTube presence. It's been at least 2 seasons. Where did the idea for On Deck with Lucy come? Was that your first venture into self-producing?
Yeah, it came out of pure frustration. I built up my resume, and I was then going for the bigger jobs, the paid jobs. And I would get so close to, the big paid job that I was like, oh my God, I would be getting paid to do what I love to do.
The paid hosting jobs?
The paid hosting jobs. And then I'd get to like the last 2, and they would go with the guy, or they would go with the blonde. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to show them what I can do, and I'm going to create a show talking about what I love to talk about. And so I ended up creating On Deck with Lucy, which you were a fantastic guest on. You were amazing.
Thank you. Yes, I remember working on that, and I was impressed by what you had put together. I'm just learning now that you had production experience from when you were back in London. When you approached On Deck with Lucy, you had probably that experience to give you some concept of what was involved in the creation of that.
Definitely. And I wasn't aware of it at the time, but I did have that experience of putting together ideas. And I think because I was new out of school as well, I'd gone back to those days where you're in a classroom creating and working. And it was still very fresh to me. And we were always told you have to be creating your own content. Otherwise, this city is going to kill you. I was already in that mentality, so it came easier than expected.
So what did it take to create it? On Deck with Lucy, your first season was not just you taking a flip cam or an iPhone or something and holding it out arm's length. You had a crew. How did you find a crew? How did you create the show in the first season?
Before the first episode, there was a guy called Antoine Allen. He had actually brought me in to host a film festival a film screening he was doing. And he was the one who actually inspired me. He said, you should just go ahead, make your own show. I know that you're frustrated right now, so do your own thing. And he actually referred me to a camera guy who I'd worked with. And the camera guy was like, I like your attitude. I'll work with you at a very good price. And so I was working twice as hard to be able to afford to bring people on. But then once I started, it just opened up so many doors. People were then wanting to work with me. And then it was more of a collaboration rather than me just paying someone to work with me, if that makes sense.
If Antoine hadn't inspired you, do you think you would have had the belief that you could create the show?
I don't think so. I think it was his push. It was the case of him just saying to me, why don't you do it yourself? And I think sometimes you just need that one sentence from someone to say, look, you can do it. You've just got to stop being scared and things will fall into place.
And that's what you found out to be the case, right?
Definitely. On Deck with Lucy appeared.
So, all right. So I remember we shot on the roof of your apartment building in the financial district. That was one place we shot. You shot in various locations. I mean, what were some of the things that you did toward getting guests to interview? What are some of the considerations? I'm sure you can get a little bit nitpicky too. I'm sure the audience would really benefit from hearing some of the specific nuts and bolts for creating a show. Help me understand some of those from what you remember.
So from the first season, it was more a case of really just interviewing people who I definitely liked and who inspired me, but it was a case-by-case situation. I wasn't able to have a full picture of I didn't even know the show was going to talk about talent, trends, and taste.
That's the theme of the show, right?
The talent, trends, and taste of New York City. That was the first season and second season, and we're hoping to take it more on a wider level on our third season. Yeah, I didn't realize that was going to be the theme. It was just me talking about what I love and trying to connect with people. So a lot of research, a lot of people saying no, a lot of networking, and a lot of hustling. And I really do believe it was from the networking that it was like a domino effect. One person to the other kind of came into my life, and that was how they appeared on deck.
Now, I'm guessing, don't let me put these words in your mouth, you have some interest in controlling the product. You don't strike me as a controlling type person, but when it comes to producing something, you want to make sure that that final product is a good representation of you. Was it hard at all to relinquish control to your production team when it came to producing that? Can you tell me a little about that?
Definitely. And I think on the second season, I worked with a fantastic guy and his company, Christian Cruz Studios. That was a collaboration. And it was hard to give over power, and I say power, I don't think that's, give over control on certain things, because this is so close to my heart. This is what I've put so much effort into. So it is hard at times. And even now, I find it very hard to dedicate and give work out to different people in my team. But I know I can't do it all, and it will become a better product if I let other people get involved. But it is a case you have to be aware of who you do trust in this industry, and you have to have contracts involved.
You recommend contracts, signed contracts with the people you work with?
Even if it's a very simple base copy, and even if it's your friend, have some form of contract, just so that everyone's on the same page of what roles you're going to be playing in this project. Because it may just be a one-episode web show that you don't think is going to go anywhere, but it could. So you have to just be very smart about the whole process.
Briefly, what are some of the things that would be in such a contract?
I speak about On Deck as a product, as a brand. So I have full rights to that logo, full rights to the brand. I have right now full control over where it's distributed. Now, eventually, we were in talks about working with a company that will distribute it on an international level. So then I'm not going to have all of that control. So that would be when a new contract is written out. You know, if you're working with videographers or directors, a rate needs to be stated on there. You need to all understand where this is coming from. You know, if you're a freelancer, you know, all of that stuff.
How did you develop On Deck? So you set out and you got your first episode down, you got your first season down, and then you went into a second season. Did you find that having a first episode or having a first season was helpful to communicate the improvements?
Definitely. It was only from having a first season. Then Christian Cruise Studios came along and they were like, we like what you're doing. We think we can help with the production quality and definitely give you more sort of contacts and people to come into your show. So then now I review the second season. I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't have done that. Oh my God, that's awful. Because I'm looking at it from a completely different standpoint. It's been a year since our second season, and I've held off doing a third season because of all of our other projects taking place, but also because I wanted to know what was next. Who do I want? What angle are we going for? How is this different to other shows out there? So it's definitely been a case of me taking time away from the project to now revisit it with a fresh new outlook.
Well, that quality improvement, I can see the quality improvement between the first and the second season. Your web series ended up on Time Warner Cable Channel 67.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth did your program make the jump from YouTube to television?
A lot of hustling and networking again. I did have to create 8 episodes. It had to be done in a certain time frame. I think we did it over the summer. I had to have everything edited and done by September. I forget what date it was. So there was a time crunch with it so that it could air in the fall. And now with our third season, I haven't given myself a time crunch because I want us to get, you know, the best guests in the best locations. So we have a little bit more freedom with this season.
Now, I'd like to segue a little bit away from On Deck and try to understand how on earth this experience led to your on-camera appearances on shopping channels. So you've worked on QVC and HSN.
Yeah.
I'll say hawking products. I've seen a little bit of your work. I've seen your HSN appearance. Did the On Deck experience somehow lead to that kind of experience? Walk me through those steps.
So even now, I'm self-managed. I don't have an agent. I do everything myself. So with regards to the shopping channel, I started to work with companies, you know, beauty products, as in, you know, doing an infomercial here and there. And a fantastic lady saw my stuff. She'd seen some of On Deck, Lauren Sydney, and she called me in for an audition and got me the opportunity to work on QVC. And then from QVC, I got offered a fantastic opportunity to work with Dr. Brandt. And so from Dr. Brandt, I helped launch the product at HSN.
Wow, that's so exciting. I think I remember hearing about the QVC connections when they were starting to happen. When you're on HSN or when you were on QVC, those are live programs.
Oh my gosh. They're live, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
How did you figure that out?
Well, there was a lot of preparation beforehand. Also, there are only certain things you can say with regards to a product. There are a lot of legality stuff involved. So you have to learn a specific script, but you also don't know what questions the host is going to ask you.
Who provides that script?
the company. So there's a whole process. Basically, with a beauty product, the company will say, oh, we want to say this, and this about the product. It then has to go through the law department of QVC. They have to be able to say, okay, we agree with this. This is true. This is a fact. And she can now say it. Otherwise, if you say something that they're not going to agree with, they're going to silence you. So you have to understand the product through and through. You also have to be able to engage with the audience and talk to them rather than sell something. You're sharing some information, and then you just have to get ready to go live, and there's no going back.
The program that I saw, which was I think done about 3 weeks ago when you were on HSN, you were seated on a couch and you spoke to the hostess, and then you walked over to a section where two models were made up. What I was trying to figure out in watching that was that the way the session was going to go, or
was it just like okay, let's go take a look?
Impromptu movement.
So I was working with an incredible host, Amy Morrison, and I've worked with her before. And I also feel very safe in acting. It's a case of you have to feel safe with your partner. You have to give and take. The same in hosting, and especially because I'm not technically a host on the shopping channel. I'm a spokesperson. There is a host who's interviewing me. So you have to let them take the lead because they're controlling this interview. So I'd worked with her before, and I knew that was kind of going to be where we end up, but I didn't know at what stage. You've got people talking in your ear, telling you what to say, when to say things.
Oh, really? You had an earwig?
Oh, my gosh, yes. At my first ever show on QVC, I thought, oh, my God, what am I doing? Because and also there's different cameras that you're going to be looking at, and you've got a producer telling you which camera. It's a lot. It stresses me out, that's for sure.
But you've gotten better with that over time?
Yeah, it's been a great learning experience. And I think live TV is the hardest thing you can do as a host, and probably as an actor as well.
What's the difference between live TV hosting and live on-stage hosting, which you also do?
On-stage hosting is different, and I would compare it to TV and film as an actor. If you've come from theatre, which I did originally as an actress, I was very animated, and I still think I'm very animated. I then had to bring everything down for TV. Now, as a host, you still have to be animated on TV, but it's not quite as big, and it's about having a conversation. Now, that's the whole hosting style, being a friend to whoever's watching. When you're on stage, you've got an audience. You have to engage them, and I think sometimes you forget that you have to engage with them. You can't just speak at them. Whereas on TV, you're just speaking to a camera and they're not going to reply to you. You're thinking of what their reaction is. Whereas in live hosting, you see what their reaction is.
So what does that imply? Are you making eye contact with the audience? Are you saying their names? How do you invite them into your world?
I would definitely be asking them questions and getting them, it depends. I do a lot of beauty shows, so I have to get an audience to come closer to the stage to look at the hair shows that are taking place. I am presenting at times, but I'm also trying to get them to have fun and get an atmosphere to occur before the artists come on stage. I think I prefer being on camera than I do on stage.
Is the on-stage work scripted?
No, I have to make that up as well. So now if you ever give me a script, I'm awful. I'm like, what? You want me to learn this? I just want to say what I want to say.
Our interview on your show, On Deck with Lucy, was about my improv book and some other things related to improv. And I seem to remember you're saying to me that you were no good at improv. But look, you're doing improv at a professional level, at a national level.
Well, now I can't remember anything on the script.
You're a paid improviser. If someone wants to get into hosting, what kinds of money are they expecting to see if someone's just starting out or as they work their way up in different experiences? Can you give me at least a general sense, give the audience a general sense of what they might make from hosting, at least from your experience?
A starting sort of day rate, if you were doing, say, and there are a lot of these sort of jobs available, a spokesmodeling on-camera job for, a company. And I'm not talking a big national company, but an independent company that maybe wants to make a video for their website. That you would be looking at $250 to $300 a day. That's a starting. Now, of course, there are those other jobs which you're going to need to do, which is like $50 a day, just so that you can at least have something. Because if you're applying for a hosting gig and you don't have anything on camera, you're going to have a tough time. So you need to have something, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're out on the street, which I really encourage, or, doing these smaller jobs that are very little pay is a good way just to get out there and start connecting with people.
And I presume you mean those are non-union jobs.
Non-union. And with Salon Centric, which is my main live hosting gig, I connected with a guy called Stephen Marinaro. He's called the Salon Guy. He's fantastic. If you want to look into branding and how to develop your brand and become a host, he's a really good person on YouTube to watch. I connected with him and he said, look, I'm going to be doing some red carpet hosting at this hair show. Come along. It was just a case of me going along. It was a non-paid thing. I was just going to go and meet him. And I got to ask a few questions on the red carpet. Someone saw me on the red carpet. And then the following year, they called me and they said, we saw you at this event. We want you to be the main stage host for Salon Centric. That was from going out to New Jersey, not getting paid to do something, but connecting and showing people that I can do it. And then I get like a year contract. So you have to be able to judge things and evaluate them. So I would say, back to your question, Ben, $250 pretty much starting. But then it can go up to, and I'm not talking like Mario Lopez money, because obviously your agent will deal with that when you need it. But if you're still doing non-union stuff, you can expect probably like $2,000, $3,000 a day, that sort of range.
And that would be for, what, an 8-hour day? Is that what you're thinking? Or are you thinking a 12-hour day? Or how long would the days be on this kind of work?
Like an hour.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. That's great.
But that's on TV. That's doing like a segment of some sorts,
Oh, I see. So the TV pays a lot better than, say, the live hosting, or just pays better and live onstage hosting?
From my experience, I would say TV is more pay than your live hosting.
Wrapping this up, getting this closer to the end, I want to see what you would recommend to an actor who wants to get into hosting. Let me actually ask this one question, because this is one question I have on my mind that's there. How do you get in touch with a production company to do your hosting show? Where do you start? Where does an actor start?
LinkedIn is actually a really good place to start.
LinkedIn. What do you search on LinkedIn?
You would look under producers, production companies, look for places in New York, and see what sort of things they're working on. If there's a startup production company and they want to just get credits and they want to get material on their site, go to networking events. I used to hate networking events, but you have to go to them. Go to these expos and just get your face out there. But also know what you're pitching when you go to these production companies. There's no point just going there and saying, look, I want to go into hosting. I want to make a TV show. Can you work with me? Because there's no sort of incentive there for them to work with you.
What kind of money are we talking? I mean, the term production company just speaks thousands of dollars that maybe an actor doesn't have. How affordable is it?
It's affordable. It is. There are smaller production companies out there and you don't need a whole crew. But also, I would suggest, think about other things that you can offer them. It's not always about money. You could offer them a percentage of your brand. They could have rights over this if they collaborate with you. You can offer them some way in which you can both work together and they get stuff out of working with you, a connection, or there are lots of different ways. And sponsorship is a great way of creating money so that you can afford to cover your costs in production.
Any pointers or tips on an actor wanting to score, say, an interview or get a hosting gig?
I think the hardest thing as an actor wanting to go into hosting is that they want to pretend to be someone. You have to know who you are and what you want to offer as a host. And then once you know that, then just go ahead and be you. But that is a fact. You have to be you as a host.
It's funny how hard that is for some people, right?
I just had a hard time pretending to be anyone else. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
How does someone score an interview with someone? I mean, it wasn't too hard getting an interview with you. I'm friends with you. I just send you an email. Maybe I text you. I can't remember. Let's say you want to get maybe a celebrity or someone, who's harder to reach. Do you have any tips on scoring such interviews?
I think red carpet events are really good in that sense. Aim for the Oscars, but don't necessarily have that as your first point where you want to start. But red carpet events, they happen all over independent film festivals so that you can be on that red carpet, get interviews with someone, and they're going to stop for you. You just say, hi, I'm Ben Hauck with
the Acting Income Podcast.
Oh my God, it's been a long day and it's hot, Ben. It's really hot. So you say your name in the show and ask them the question, and then you get a celebrity. That's how I got Michael Kenneth Williams from a red carpet event. So that's a really good place of sourcing celebrities and also create some form of press package, emphasize things, or you can fluff things up on a press release and send it to PR agencies and then try and get those celebrities or those people you want to interview.
Last big question. Any quick, simple do's and don'ts when it comes to being on camera as a host? I mean, don't wear jangly jewelry or something.
Do's and don'ts. It's not about selling anymore or over presenting. I think a lot of people know that now. It is about just being it's casual and it's fun and it's having a friendly.
It's not about being a salesperson. It's about just kind of being casual and yourself, is what you're saying.
Exactly. I would say research and watch as many people who you admire as a host as possible. I love a guy called Michael Parkinson back in England. I think he's a fantastic interviewer, so I watch him. That just research, know your craft as a host as well as an actor. I think that's important. And don't undersell yourself either. Know your value, know what you're worth, and always be nice to people.
How much should you study your own work? Does that improve your work, or does that make you a nutcase?
It makes me a nutcase. I can't do it because I couldn't even live with myself. Because even as an actor, you'd be able to say, okay, well, it's that character. Where I'm like, that's actually me doing that and saying that. Oh my gosh. So I can't do it. People can, and I can't. I watch other people, not myself.
Lucy Norris, where can we find out more information about you or about On Deck with Lucy or any of your other projects?
You can go to ondeckwithlucy.com to see all of our seasons, first and second, and our third season will be airing at the end of the year. You can follow us On Deck with Lucy on everything. Then lucynorris.com is my other work as a producer, as a host, and then you can follow me as Lucy J. Norris. Also, another project that we're just working on is something called All Things Beauty, which if you got a fascination with beauty products, go to our website, allthingsbeauty.tv, and also follow us, All Things Beauty TV.
Is that going to be a web series, or what is that?
It's going to be a web series. Right now, it's a combination of different females blogging about beauty products, about image. It was my sort of idea, along with my girlfriend, to create a platform where women can just express themselves. And men, if they want to. We are going to do an episode called Metro Beauty.
You're rolling your eyes. Lucy Norris, thank you so much for talking to the audience of the Acting Income Podcast. I'm so happy to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
In the interview, Lucy recommended searching LinkedIn to find a production company. Apropos to this topic, there's a quote attributed to LinkedIn's founder, Reid Hoffman, that goes, "If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late." If you're looking to become a host, just do it. Get started. You'll probably want to be perfect. That's completely understandable. However, there will probably always be room to grow and improve. That's to say, there will probably always be something that embarrasses you about what you've created. Avoid letting that stop you. Get it ready to a point, then release it. Once it's out there, you have something to show to others, to leverage out ideas for improvement, to make your work better, sooner. In creating this show, I had to follow that advice. I realized that when I started the Acting Income Podcast, there would be things that I was doing that I wouldn't quite know I'd cringe about in the future. There's at least one episode where I essentially thank myself as a sponsor. That embarrasses me. But without having that mistake out there to live, I wouldn't have been able to learn its lessons. I admire Lucy's bravery. Surely she had some guides along the way, but she's basically figuring it out as she goes along. And look where she's gotten. Let her experience as an actor and a host be an inspiration to you if you're looking to generate an income as a host. And that's the show. This episode was sponsored by the book Long-Form Improv by Ben Hauck. Grab your copy today at actingincome.com/LFI. The show notes for this episode are available at actingincome.com/episode 13, where you can leave a comment on this episode. You can also find Acting Income on Twitter and Facebook. To rate and review this podcast on iTunes, visit actingincome.com/iTunes. Pitch an episode idea to actingincome.com/pitch. And to sponsor an episode, visit actingincome.com/advertise. I'm Ben Hauck. Toodaloo. See you on the next episode. And for more information, as always, check out actingincome.com.